Great. Thank you.
Sure, and I'm trying to, again, everything is
It's
in different
perfect.
places. There we go. Is that working? We can all see this now?
Yeah, absolutely. It's fine.
Awesome. Well, good afternoon. Good morning here from Denver, Colorado. And I am so excited to share my perspective of what the metaverse is. Like I said, I am here in Denver, Colorado, and I actually see one of my colleagues, Dan Powers, on as well. So we are up in the middle of the night here in the United States. But still very excited, want to make sure that we participate in this conversation. And Jean-Philippe, thank you for inviting me. You always have such interesting perspectives on these topics, and you always bring together such diverse individuals to participate in the work that we're doing and the work that we are trying to do, and that is expand our minds. Just to give you a little bit of background on myself, my name is Alires Almon, and I am the founder of Deep Space Predictive Research Group. And our mission is to bring the human in the loop and look at an alarm system for psychological distress in long-term space travel. So space is my passion in the work that I do, but I'm also associated with the Artificial Intelligence Institute of the Iliff School of Theology here in Denver, Colorado, as well as the Colorado Space Business Roundtable, where Colorado is one of the largest contributors to the aerospace industry here in the United States. So space is part of what I do, but it's also the application of that space and using tools to help people and the humans survive in this new endeavor that we're trying to do. So I'm going to talk about, when we talk about the metaverse, as in your story, Jean-Philippe, you talked about where people go, where they want to connect. But one of the questions that I like to bring up about the metaverse is really this reality that we're trying to create that's connected, but really whose reality are we joining and whose reality is really being presented and engaged in? So I'll start with some very simple conversations, some very simple definitions when we talk about the metaverse. And when we talk about the metaverse, it's really a virtual world, an immersive virtual world that we all come in to share, to do things together. It is the part of this new technology that has evolved and is an emergent property of the work that we're doing and the technology that has been developed. And the naming of it, as many science fiction fans know, that Neil Stephenson brought up this term in his book Snow Crash, which I was like, I read that book. I'm all excited. I know what these people are talking about. But really, it's this place to go, to escape, to immerse yourself, and to connect. And so that's how I'm defining the metaverse in very simplistic terms, knowing that what it really is a huge endeavor and a new space that we all are, not all, but that people are striving to create for us, whoever us happens to be. So the promise of the universe is that the creators and developers are creating entryways for connectedness, for accessibility, and bringing people together and connecting them for the purposes of entertainment, for productivity, for financial gain. I know I don't have that on here, but the metaverse is really there to give us another way to connect. We talk about the need of humans. We are social creatures. We want to go and find ways to connect, even when that place is not a tangible place that we are used to, but the technology that we've created gives us a place where we can go and create and interact with that technology that we've created. So it's not a physical space, but a space that we've created based on the technology and based on technology and what that technology has enabled. So really is this promise of taking the objectivity of technology, because one of the things that sometimes we believe about technology is that it's non-biased, that technology is objective, but it's also creative. It's also enables us to do things that we cannot do in what we consider the reality and the physical world of everyday life. And so what I want to do is talk a little bit. It's not quite the story that was beautifully created right before this, but it is a little glimpse into what this world of the metaverse is and how it intersects. So one of my new favorite movies is Apple TV's Swan Song. I'm not going to give it away, but the plot away, but the whole film is immersed in this world of technology that is so integrated into everything that we do that it is almost invisible into the way that we interact with it, and so seamless into our world. It's very immersive.
Oh, like
So,
that. Mhm.
okay, great. Well, now you can see the metaverse, and this is
Absolutely.
my definition slide. I'll just go through them quickly. The promise of the metaverse is what we were talking about, all the different ways that we can connect and what we were trying to do. And I just landed right here on the promising view, augmented reality for everyday life. Basically, this film gave us a view of what technology can be, how it's immersive into our everyday lives, and it does not interrupt what we do and how we do. It's not a barrier to the relationship. It's not, in this movie, it was not a barrier to the story. It just kind of folded back in, and it just was. And I think this is a really interesting way that we connect to our technology, which is what the metaverse is trying to do, is connect us with the technology and give us a new way to live, a new way to engage. And one, I recommend this movie just because the story is so beautifully and well done, that the technology, which is powerful and enables everything in the movie, just sits back and just is part of a way of life. And I wonder what that life really is like, and what it took for everyone to agree to live life like that. And that's another thing about the metaverse. It's giving us a different way of living, a different way of being. And so we've been preparing for this metaverse to emerge. These are some statistics from the United States, and understanding how we connect to the metaverse, and how we're connecting to the metaverse is through devices. And in the 2010s, 96% of Americans had a cell phone, a smartphone. They have 83% had smartphones. Basically, we have had all these tools ready. People have access to these tools no matter what your age is, what your nationality, your culture, your gender identity. It doesn't matter. You have access to these tools. These tools are not the tools themselves are not biased in any way. They are basically a piece of hardware that we have, a piece of hardware that enables your entry into what the creators of this next evolution of the internet that we have is enabling. And so we all now have a ticket to get there, because it is about access. It is about how do we get to the metaverse and what we have deemed as the metaverse. And now that this is something that's ubiquitous, we have the technology, we have the tools, we have the interest, and we are ready to engage in whatever this reality has been set up for us to participate in. And so when I think about the metaverse, I really think about, how do we want to engage? You want to take an escape from your reality, but you also want this new reality that's been created for you, for us, to be reflected in the metaverse. It's almost like this mini manifesto. It's like, I want to be here. I have the tools to get there. I want to connect to others. I want to engage others who are not like ourselves. And I want this reality to be reflected in the kaleidoscope that is the diverse life that's in the real world. So I'm going to kind of talk about the real world versus the metaverse. One thing we have, I work with the Mental Health Center of Denver. And when we talk about diversity, we don't talk about it as a melting pot, a tossed salad. We talk about it as a kaleidoscope where I am me as my color. I could be yellow. The next person can stand next to me and be red and be themselves. But when we get together, we create orange. We don't lose who we are of ourselves, but we create something new. And I think the metaverse is really trying to do that, is bring people together to connect and create something new. However, we are human and we bring ourselves to everything that we do. We don't want to be marginalized again in a different reality. You don't want to be invisible again in a different reality. And you don't want to be a token just to say that you're there. You really, I believe, people want to be themselves, but they also want to be connected. But they don't want to bring this other reality that's been defined by whoever creates it. And that's the important piece that we want to do here, is like, why are people creating this reality? What do they want out of it? That intention is reflected in how the metaverse is created. So one of my favorite cartoons and comics was The Far Side back when it was in publication. But this right here is my favorite comic scene, is like, you don't just have to be a sheep, even though that's what you are. The metaverse allows us to make a reality of whatever we want it to be. As we start to look at the commercial aspects of the metaverse, we have the opportunity to create a different version of ourselves, a different reality where our consciousness lives in a way that we don't live in the physical world. And that's empowering. It's great, but it's also, you have to do it in the context of how that universe, that metaverse, that virtual reality was designed. And if that virtual reality is designed by people who have the motive of profit, the motive of control, the motive of ideology, then you have to still conform to those ideals and that ideology, which the promise of the metaverse is that you have freedom, that you have a way to be yourself, that you have a way to express yourself in the way you want, because you can create your avatar to be purple with green hair and wear a dress one day, wear spike heels with pants the next day. You can change gender. All of that is available in the metaverse in the way that it's been created, but there's still confinement. And when we go into there, that new reality that you live in, that you have created for yourself, may not match the reality that's been identified or created by somebody else who's running that. I noticed one of the talks later is about how the tech giants have become supervillains, or maybe the new supervillains. And it's almost like the villains become unintentional because they're trying to create this great access and freedom and entertainment in immersive way where you can escape, but you really have not escaped. You're still in the confines of the ideology of those that created it. And so when we talk about the metaverse, are we allowing ourselves to make that reality for ourselves? When we want to be something different, are other people not seeing that and not understanding it? And it takes those people to be on the cutting edge and go out and explore and take the hits and understand that they may, when you are living on that cutting edge, you're taking the hits for everybody else and trying to understand and shape it. And I think these conversations that we're having puts the onus on us to be intentional about how we do things and be intentional about how we create, because we know that's how our technology emerges by those that are creating the technology itself. Your biases show up. The technology is responsive to the creator of that technology, and we want to make sure that that happens in a way that allows other people to create this reality and co-create it with others who are also existing in the metaverse. So my challenge to you and to actually all of us is to think differently about how we create this universe. It is a reality that people are going to exist in. It's a reality that they're going to create, but in order to do that reality in a way that the metaverse is open to everyone, we have to be intentional. We have to be intentional about why we're creating that space, why we're inviting different people, why we are creating the access points that the metaverse has. Is it going to be a VR headset? Is it going to eventually be the augmented reality contact lenses and audio that's connected to that? How are we going to be intentional about the development of those technologies and the use of it? Not only, and I'm obviously coming from a very US-centric perspective, but it is international. Are we going to be able to live together even in the metaverse when we're trying to escape the reality, but we cannot escape ourselves? We are the human in the loop. We are that place where we always bring ourselves, no matter where we are, no matter what we do, and we have to account for that. We have to account for the fact that we do have challenges with each other. We do have biases. The technology is not fair to everyone. So we have to understand how that end user is going to experience the metaverse, and how that end user is going to influence how that metaverse grows. And I, put it the challenge to all of us, because we're all going to create it, to keep these things in mind. And it should be a reality for all of us. So with that, I say thank you. And thank you for listening. And I will take any questions that you have.
Wow. As usual. So insightful. Someone has a question for Alires? Gabriel? Andres?
I might have a question.
Yeah.
And first of all, thank you, Alires. I thought it was very, very interesting. And so you work. I heard you speak about being inclusive and working on diversity in this industry. So I, like Mohammed, I work in Switzerland, and in the tech world in Switzerland, the brothers are pretty lonely. So so I was wondering what kind of type of feedback you could have for designers who would like to be more inclusive, or encourage companies to include more, or have more diversity in the industry.
Gabriel, thank you. That's a great question, because the organization, one of the organizations that I work for, is the Mental Health Center of Denver, and we are a very awakened organization, and we go all the way to the point of understanding that when you want a diverse workforce, it's not easy. It takes time, and it's messy. People are going to make mistakes. People will not understand what you're doing. Different groups will vie for attention. But I would, my advice to companies as they're looking at creating a diverse workforce is they have to understand what it's going to take. They have to understand that there's a wider net that's out there, and you have to be intentional about going and getting and recruiting people who are different than who you've recruited in the past. And it's going to take different methodologies. And it's also going to take not just, oh, great, we hired someone who's from a diverse background than whoever our normal hires are. What it's going to take is creating a culture where that person wants to stay. I know I work in the aerospace industry, and that's always a challenge, because In the US, most of tech jobs are still mostly white male. You have some diversity in hiring, and when we talk about the diversity that is hired, it tends to be Asian American, Indian American, not necessarily Black or brown people or Native Americans. There's still not that presence in the people who are creating. They're there in the consumers, but not in the creative side and the development side. And so that's always a challenge, and companies have to be intentional about the work that it's going to take and the culture that you create. Because what happens if you don't have the cultural intent in the same way that you had in hiring the person, the way to keep them, then you're failing, because the people will leave. You made the effort, and then that just allows the leadership to say, look, we tried and people just don't want to work here. It is work, it's hard. I will say that in working with Colorado Space Business Roundtable, first of all, I'm gonna be in full disclosure, we're all very nerdy. And when we talk about diversity, there is this movement now of creating a JEDI space. And that JEDI stands for just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive space for people to exist in space, in the aerospace industry, and making sure that we have to think about what we do, because there is no magic bullet. It's not going to happen right. Okay, we've hired, a diverse workforce, everything's great now. No, it takes work to maintain it, takes work to create the culture, and you have to be at it all the time. So my advice, this is a long answer to say, you have to work at it from intentionality, you have to set the culture, and you have to be willing to stay in the messiness that is created when you bring people who aren't used to working together, but know that it's going to work in the long run. And it is a long game, it's not a quick fix.
Thank you very
Thank you so
much,
much.
Alires.